Picture this. It's 10 p.m. on a weeknight in Chicago.
Okay.
And we are dead in the middle of the NBA playoffs. Like right in the thick of it.
Oh, man, the tension there is just wild.
Exactly. If you've ever been around a city when their team is deep in a playoff run, you know the atmosphere.
Yeah, you can feel it everywhere.
The pressure is absolutely suffocating. I mean, the air practically hums with anxiety.
Right.
And in the middle of all this, a black Suburban pulls up quietly to the security gates of a place called Attack Athletics.
Which I should point out is not exactly your neighborhood YMCA.
No, not at all. It's this highly exclusive, heavily guarded training facility on the west side of Chicago.
Right. Usually it's just buzzing with pros, trainers, music blasting.
But tonight is dead silent.
Yeah.
There's only one guy in the gym.
And nobody else on Earth knows he's there.
Nobody. I mean, his teammates. They're sitting in a hotel room 2,000 miles away, probably trying to sleep.
While the media is just losing their minds.
Oh, totally. Yeah. The sports reporters are in a total frenzy. They're blowing up his phone with calls and texts.
Trying to figure out if he's injured, right?
Exactly, or if he's lost his edge, or if he can even physically step onto the court for the next game.
Which is, what, less than 72 hours away?
Yep. The external pressure is just at an absolute boiling point.
We're talking about legacy-defining, career-altering stakes here.
And the craziest part is, the coach doesn't even know where he is.
Wow.
The general manager's doing all this damage control, telling the press, like, oh, he's getting treatment, he's fine.
Just a routine rest day, folks.
Right. But this player isn't getting iced. He isn't getting his ankles taped.
He's actually so overwhelmed by the noise, so swamped by that fear of failing.
That very human fear of whether he can actually get the job done when millions of people are watching.
Yeah.
So he secretly charters a plane, flies 2,000 miles in the dead of night, and walks through those security gates for one reason.
Just one.
He just needed to hear 2 words from his trainer.
And we have to emphasize for everyone listening, those words aren't some magical physical remedy.
Right. It wasn't a secret stretch or a, biomechanical adjustment.
Bro.
The trainer looks at this elite, world-renowned athlete, sees the pure panic in his eyes, and just says, don't think.
It's brilliant.
It is.
And brutal because it strikes at the exact mechanism of his failure in that moment.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to fly across the country in the middle of a high-stakes playoff run...
Burning thousands of dollars on a private jet.
Yes. Just to be told to stop thinking, that feels completely insane to a normal person.
Totally.
Like if I'm stressed at work and I fly to my mentor and they just say, don't think, I'm asking for a refund.
Oh, absolutely. But
Yeah.
that mechanism, that specific psychological short circuit, is exactly what we are digging into today.
Right. For you listening right now, our mission for this deep dive is to decode the mindset of the most elite, high-performing individuals on the planet.
Based on the phenomenal source material we have today.
Exactly. We are pulling this framework directly from a massive stack of notes and excerpts surrounding Tim S. Grover's book, Relentless. From good to great to unstoppable.
And Grover, by the way, is that very trainer from the Chicago gym.
He is. And we really need to set the tone for this exploration right away.
Yeah, if you are tuning in expecting a standard rah-rah, feel-good sports motivation seminar, you are going to be shocked.
Oh, totally. If you're looking for strategies about, like, finding your passion,
Or unlocking your inner smile, or thinking outside the box.
well, Grover argues there is no box.
Right. The box is a lie invented by average people to make themselves feel better about not achieving greatness.
That is so harsh, but it's the core of the text.
It really is. This text is about raw, unfiltered animal instinct.
It strips away all those polite corporate fictions we tell ourselves about success.
It gets incredibly dark. It gets intense. I mean, I was actually sweating reading some of these chapters.
It is supposed to make you uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Our mission here is to understand exactly how these elite performers achieve ultimate physical and professional dominance.
Through absolute mental dominance.
Exactly. And more importantly, whether you're an executive trying to close a massive corporate acquisition,
Or a parent managing a chaotic family dynamic.
or, as Grover explicitly points out in the text, a city bus driver navigating downtown traffic.
How you can take this exact same mental framework and apply it to your own reality.
Which brings us to the ultimate goal.
What? Being unstoppable. Everyone says they want to be unstoppable.
Sure they do.
But Grover argues that we can't even begin to talk about being unstoppable until we honestly assess where most people actually live on the spectrum of competition.
Right, and he breaks this down into a really specific three-tiered taxonomy.
Let's get into that.
He classifies competitors into three distinct groups. You have the coolers, who are classified as good.
Right.
You have the closers, who are great.
Right.
And then you have the cleaners, who are unstoppable.
Coolers, closers, cleaners. Let's not just list these. Let's really debate the mechanics of how they operate.
Because the text gives some incredible side-by-side comparisons of these three types facing the exact same scenarios.
Let's start with the big one. How they handle success and the spotlight.
This is a very revealing metric. It shows what actually drives the individual.
So, according to the text, a cooler the good competitor thinks they want the spotlight.
They crave the attention, they want the promotion, they want the award.
But when they actually get it, when the lights hit them, they usually handle it badly.
Why is that, though? Why do they freeze if it's exactly what they wanted?
Because they haven't built the internal foundation to sustain the pressure of being perceived.
Ah, right.
They get nervous, they deflect praise, or they become paralyzed by the sudden expectation that they now have to repeat that success.
And a closer, the great competitor is fundamentally different here.
How so?
When the spotlight hits, a closer steps right up to the front.
They want that mic?
They will literally elbow people out of the way to get to that microphone because they desperately need everyone to see who is in charge.
They feed on the external validation.
Right. They need the credit to feel real.
But then we get to the cleaner, the unstoppable one.
The cleaner doesn't have to show anyone who's in charge.
They don't need to stand in the front of the photo op to prove they won.
Because everyone in the room already knows.
Their presence is this unspoken gravitational force.
Exactly. They don't need the spotlight because they are the ones generating the electricity.
I love the food analogy Grover uses here to explain the underlying biology of this.
It perfectly captures their different appetites for success.
He says coolers will basically just eat whatever you feed them.
If you give them a sandwich, they eat it and say thank you.
Right. They are content with what they are handed by management or just by life in general.
Closers are a significant step up.
They will look at the menu, order exactly what they want.
Eat a massive, expensive meal.
And then they are completely satisfied. They lean back, unbutton their pants, and say, "I'm full."
But the cleaner, it literally does not matter what you feed a cleaner.
Not at all.
They could consume the biggest, most elaborate, multi-course feast of success.
Like a championship, a massive IPO, a Pulitzer Prize.
And an hour later, they are starving again?
They are never, ever full.
Never. And this insatiable hunger dictates how they handle reality.
Specifically, how they process the truth.
Yeah. When things go catastrophically wrong, coolers are terrified of the truth.
They avoid it, they sugarcoat it.
Because they lack the emotional regulation to deal with the fallout.
Closers are much better, right? They will actively dig for the truth.
They want to know why the project failed.
Yeah.
Sure.
But if the truth makes them look bad, they get defensive and upset.
They want the truth as long as it doesn't damage their ego.
Whereas cleaners, cleaners know you're lying from the jump.
The text says they just sit back, entirely unbothered, and wait for the truth to eventually reveal itself.
Because they know that whatever the reality is, no matter how ugly or devastating, they possess the internal capacity to handle it.
It's a completely different frequency of living.
It sounds to me like, let's use a football analogy here.
Okay, wait on me.
A closer is the star quarterback who throws the winning touchdown in the final 3 seconds.
They rip off their helmet, they want the glory, they want the confetti.
Right. But the cleaner is the invisible force.
Like the hyper-obsessive offensive lineman.
Or the defensive coordinator who didn't sleep for 4 days analyzing tape.
Yes, the one who actually manufactured the specific reality where that closer had the opportunity to shine in the first place.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the defining characteristic of a cleaner is a literal neurochemical addiction to the result.
It's not just a strong work ethic.
No, they literally cannot feel a sustained sense of ultimate success.
It's a physiological impossibility for them.
Because in their mind, the gap between what they just achieved and absolute perfection still exists.
When a cleaner wins a championship, they don't celebrate for long.
They might take a quiet, solitary moment in the locker room to let the heart rate drop.
But their brain has already snapped to the next target. The victory is already in the past.
Okay, I have to jump in here because that sounds deeply exhausting.
It sounds miserable to most people.
I read that and thought, who wants to live like that?
Exactly.
But what really grounds this text for me, and why I think it's so vital for us to dissect, is how Grover emphasizes that this cleaner mentality is not exclusive to genetic lottery winners playing pro sports.
Precisely. It's a transferable internal operating system.
Excellence is not bound by industry.
The mechanics of being unstoppable are identical whether you are on a basketball court or in a boardroom.
Let's expand on the everyday cleaners he brings up, because this is where the philosophy actually clicked for me.
He talks about the late-night custodian in a massive corporate office building.
This person works entirely alone at 3 a.m. with zero fanfare.
No one is cheering for them.
But they hold the keys to every single door.
They know exactly where everything is.
They know who stays late to actually work,
Who leaves empty whiskey bottles hidden under their desks.
or who is secretly sneaking in for an affair.
They know all the dirty secrets of the corporate hierarchy.
In a very real way, they are the most powerful, observant person in the building.
And they take ultimate, uncomplaining responsibility for their domain.
The multi-million-dollar corporation functions the next morning exclusively because this one person cleans up the messes.
Literally and figuratively.
Or consider the waiter he describes. Not just a guy carrying plates.
But a waiter who operates as a cleaner.
He memorizes what every single regular customer drinks.
Exactly how they like their steak cooked.
What topics to avoid talking about with their spouses.
He doesn't just take orders. He aggressively manages the entire psychological dining experience.
Consequently, the wealthiest people in town beg to sit only at his tables.
And he makes an absolute fortune in tips.
Why? Because he didn't just perform the job description.
He reinvented the parameters of the job to serve his own standard of excellence.
Yes, and my personal favorite, the bus driver.
Grover paints this vivid picture of a city bus driver.
He gets on his bus every day, he's smiling, he knows all the passengers.
He knows where they get on and off.
But silently, behind that smile, his internal monologue is absolutely ruthless.
He's thinking, this is my bus. I am the apex predator of this vehicle.
There will be no messing around on my bus. The floor will be perfectly clean.
My route will be perfectly on time to the second.
And if anyone crosses my rules, they will be walking in the rain.
That internal dominance, that absolute ownership of a seemingly mundane space, is the hallmark of a cleaner.
And notice the crucial thread connecting all those examples.
The custodian, the waiter, the bus driver.
None of them are relying on a 40-inch vertical leap.
None of them have world-class genetics.
Which brings us directly to a massive, pervasive misconception that this book tackles head-on.
The illusion of physical talent.
This is a wild contradiction to me. Because if being a cleaner isn't about physical talent, what actually separates the good from the unstoppable?
Elite athletes spend all their time and millions of dollars focusing on their bodies.
The weight room, the hyperbaric chambers, the agility drills.
But Grover, a guy whose literal job title is physical trainer, steps in and says physical dominance only takes you part of the way.
He assigns a very specific, almost shocking ratio to it, doesn't he?
He does. When he begins working with an elite Hall of Fame caliber athlete, he sits them down.
And tells them that the work they're going to do together is maybe 20% physical.
The remaining 80% of their training is going to be purely mental.
80% mental. From a physical trainer, how did that math even work?
Because you have to understand the baseline. At the elite level, everyone is a genetic freak.
Right. The worst player in the NBA is still on the top 0.001% of human physical capability.
The physical baseline is equalized. So what differentiates the guy on the bench from the guy holding the MVP trophy?
Grover's core philosophy is train the mind to train the body.
You cannot endure the physical torture required to be the best until you have constructed an impenetrable mental fortress.
You have to be unbeatable from the neck up before you can ever hope to be unbeatable from the neck down.
This makes so much sense when you look at the real world.
We've all seen the curse of talent.
The high school phenom who completely fizzles out in college.
Or the brilliant savant-level software coder who never actually ships a product.
What's fascinating here is how the text dissects why those talented people fail.
The world is absolutely overflowing with incredibly talented failures.
And what happens when they fail? They instantly blame external factors.
They blame the coach for not playing them.
They blame the market for not understanding their app.
They blame bad timing.
They do this because they bought into the lethal myth that their raw talent was a golden ticket.
But a cleaner looks at talent and sees it for what it really is.
Just a starting line, nothing more.
And Grover embodies this dominance himself.
The text has this incredible moment where Grover breaks down his own physical dynamic with these massive, legendary athletes.
He points out the obvious realities like, look, I am under 6 feet tall.
I am often twice my client's age.
If I get into a physical street fight with one of these guys, I don't stand a chance.
I would be hospitalized.
Right. He'd be physically dismantled in seconds.
But he follows that up by saying the long-term result would be so much worse for the athlete.
Because Grover is going to deal with him mentally.
He realizes he doesn't need to be on their level physically to command their absolute respect.
He has to exceed their level intellectually and psychologically.
He actually calls out these young, Instagram-famous personal trainers who are always flexing their biceps,
Showing off their 8-packs, trying to look tougher than the athletes.
He basically asks them, great, you're fit, but the guys you want to train are already way fitter than you'll ever be.
Can you bridge the gap mentally?
Do you actually know the biomechanical craft? Can you break down their psychological barriers?
Or are you just praying your muscles intimidate them into respecting you?
It's a stark reminder that while physical dominance might make you great, only mental dominance makes you unstoppable.
For the cleaner, the mind is the actual weapon.
The body is just the delivery system.
Okay, so if the mind is the weapon, how does that weapon actually fire?
How do these cleaners apply this intense mental toughness in real time?
Especially when the external pressure is suffocating.
The text describes a very specific, almost altered state of consciousness they enter.
They step into what Grover refers to as the zone.
To really understand the mechanics of this, we need to go back to our late-night visitor from the intro.
The player who flew to Chicago in the dead of night just to hear the words, "Don't think."
Why was that intervention so desperately needed?
The text reveals that during his recent playoff games, his internal panic had become completely visible on his face.
He was rolling his eyes at his teammates.
He was grimacing in agony every time he missed a shot.
He was physically wearing his anxiety.
And we have to analyze why that is so dangerous.
In any high-stakes environment, emotion is a highly contagious virus.
When a leader displays negative emotion, fear, frustration, doubt, it instantly infects the rest of the group's neurology.
Grover compares it to troops marching into a brutal battle and suddenly looking back to see their seasoned commander trembling in terror.
What happens to the troops?
They drop their weapons in panic.
The structure collapses. They shut down.
The team in that playoff series was collapsing not because they suddenly forgot how to play basketball,
But because their leader was failing them mentally.
he was bleeding anxiety all over the court.
And if we translate this to the business world, the exact same biological response happens.
Think about a manager who snaps at a junior employee in a high-stakes board meeting.
Or a CEO who visibly sighs and rubs their temples when a quarterly presentation goes slightly off track.
The boss might think, oh, I'm just blowing off a little steam. It's a tiny reaction.
But every single subordinate in that room picks up on that micro-expression.
The psychological safety of the room evaporates instantly.
The team stops taking risks. They start second-guessing their data.
And everyone starts choking.
Because the boss isn't cool. They have lost their internal thermal control.
They are letting the external environment dictate their internal state.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
The antidote to this emotional virus, this collective choking, is entering the zone.
So how does the text actually define the mechanics of this space?
The zone is described as a deeply personal, fiercely isolated psychological space.
When a cleaner enters the zone, there is absolute deafening quiet in their mind.
Literally zero conscious thoughts.
It is pure, unemotional, autonomic instinct.
The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that analyzes worries and projects into the future, is essentially bypassed.
When they are in this state, they feel absolutely zero external pressure.
The screaming fans, the hostile media, the crushing expectations of their own family.
It all ceases to exist.
The only reality is the internal pressure to prove themselves, to themselves.
The text uses this incredible roller coaster analogy to explain this, and I want to spend some time on it because it really unlocked the concept for me.
It's a great analogy.
Think about that intense, gut-wrenching moment when you are sitting in the cart at the very peak of a massive roller coaster.
You are inching over the edge, looking down at a 300-foot drop.
You know exactly what's coming. You know it is mathematically designed to trigger your fight-or-flight response.
So what do? Do you scream?
Do you grip the safety bar, until your knuckles turn white and panic.
Or do you sit there, completely relaxed, your hands in your lap, entirely fearless?
Because you know with absolute certainty that you are fully capable of handling whatever physics throws at you next.
We have to dissect why people scream on the roller coaster.
The panic doesn't come from the drop itself.
Right, the drop hasn't even happened yet.
The panic comes from anticipating fear. It's the illusion of a loss of control.
The conscious mind is trying to solve a problem falling that it cannot solve.
The calmness of the cleaner comes from radical self-trust.
They never surrender internal control, even in a literal freefall.
While everyone else is getting heated up, letting their heart rate spike and their adrenaline flood their system.
The text says, cleaners start cool and they stay cool.
Uses the refrigerator analogy here, right?
Yes, think about the mechanical purpose of a refrigerator. Why do you put food in there?
To preserve it.
To keep the temperature artificially low so the asset lasts longer without spoiling.
As the arena lights get brighter, as the stakes get higher and the pressure gets hotter, a cleaner's internal temperature actually drops.
They become darker, cooler, pulling deeper into their autonomic instincts to preserve their energy for the exact moment of execution.
Anything that starts too hot can only get cold.
That is such a brilliant way to frame emotional endurance.
But you used the word darker just now, which perfectly transitions us into what is easily the most intense and honestly the most controversial part of this entire deep dive.
We've talked about staying cool and unemotional.
But Grover pushes this way past just being a stoic, calm leader.
He dives into a much more aggressive, almost frightening element of the cleaner's psyche.
He introduces the concept of the predator instinct.
And this is where the text explicitly warns the reader.
If you are reading this book looking for a pat on the back,
Or to be told you're doing a good job.
or to find a balanced, harmonious lifestyle.
Close the book. This philosophy is not for you.
Yeah, he does not sugarcoat this at all.
He flat out states that sure cleaners possess a dark side.
A dark side that absolutely refuses to be tamed, taught to be good, or forced to conform to polite society's rules.
They are, in the purest biological sense of the word, predators.
The psychology here is entirely uncompromising.
Grover argues that to be truly unstoppable, you have to surgically remove empathy and emotion from your competitive equation.
You have to become fundamentally selfish, deeply egocentric.
You cannot spend a single ounce of mental energy worrying about whether your actions are going to upset your opponent or even your peers.
You cannot care if they think you are an arrogant jerk.
Okay, wait. I have to push back hard here.
Go ahead.
Because this is where the philosophy sounds borderline sociopathic.
It really does.
If I go into my corporate office tomorrow and I start operating like a ruthless, emotionless predator who doesn't care if I upset my coworkers, I'm not going to become unstoppable.
You're going to be sitting in an HR disciplinary meeting by 2 p.m.
Exactly, and I'll be fired by Friday. So how does Grover reconcile this hyper-aggressive sports mentality with the everyday listener he claims this book is for?
That is the crucial distinction we have to make. Operating with a predator instinct in a corporate setting doesn't mean you are literally violent.
Or that you engage in workplace harassment.
Right. Or that you act like a cartoon villain screaming at people.
It's about a complete detachment from the need for social validation regarding your standards.
It means you are ruthless with your execution, not necessarily rude to your coworkers.
It means if your team produces mediocre work, you don't accept it just to keep the peace.
You reject it, coldly and objectively, regardless of whose feelings get hurt.
Which raises such a provocative question for all of us.
And can you truly be the absolute best in the world at what you do if your primary underlying concern is being liked?
According to Grover, absolutely not.
The distinction he makes between a closer and a cleaner here is vital.
A closer is respected. People admire the closer because the closer plays by the social rules.
But a cleaner is feared.
And they are only respected after the fact, specifically because they executed exactly what everyone in the room feared they were capable of doing.
He uses this tsunami metaphor to describe how a cleaner moves through the world. And it perfectly illustrates what you're saying about not being a loud cartoon villain.
How does a tsunami actually work?
It starts deep underwater, triggered by a massive seismic shift.
It moves through the deep ocean entirely silently.
It doesn't make any massive showy waves out in the open water.
If you are on a boat, you might not even realize a tsunami just passed beneath you.
You have no idea what it's doing, you can't hear it.
Until it hits the shallow water of the shore.
It rocks everything with zero warning.
And by the time you see the wave and realize what's happening, it is mathematically too late to do anything but get swept away.
Exactly. Cleaners do not announce their plans.
They don't schedule a meeting to seek validation for their strategy before they act.
They don't posture. They just gather their power silently, and then they strike.
And what happens if someone tries to test that power?
There's this fascinating section in the text about dealing with petty challenges, specifically the freeze-out.
For those who don't know, this is a basketball term where players on a team will secretly conspire to stop passing the ball to a specific teammate.
Usually it's younger, insecure guys trying to show off, trying to prove they don't need the veteran star.
Or just being petty and trying to steal the spotlight.
It is quintessential high school behavior, but it happens constantly on the professional stage.
Right, and Grover says, look, if you want to pull that petty political nonsense in an all-star game where the stakes are low and everyone is just having fun, fine.
But heaven help you if you try to freeze out a true cleaner in a game that matters.
How does the cleaner react?
They don't whine to the coach.
They don't throw a temper tantrum on the court.
They don't pull you aside for a sensitive chat about teamwork.
They just observe exactly what you are doing. They lock your betrayal into their memory forever.
And they will systematically, methodically destroy you on the court.
They will steal the ball, they will take over the game, and they actually enjoy watching you try and fail to catch them.
Because for a cleaner, someone is always trying to catch them.
That predatory instinct isn't just an offensive weapon used against the opposing team.
It is an aggressive defense mechanism used to protect their own internal standard of excellence against anyone.
Even their own teammates or their own corporate department who tries to drag them down to a mediocre emotional level.
So if we accept this premise, if cleaners operate with this intense internal drive, this predatory dark side, and this absolute lack of concern for people's feelings,
how on earth do they relate to the people around them?
how do they build a life?
The short answer is, they don't.
At least not in the warm, fuzzy, collaborative way most of us understand human connection.
Right. The text makes it very clear that cleaners live in a state of profound, self-imposed isolation.
They trust almost no one.
And we have to examine the logic behind that isolation.
To a cleaner, trusting someone else inherently means giving up a degree of control.
Grover describes it as agreeing to sit in the passenger seat of a car going 100 miles an hour.
A cleaner will absolutely not sit in the passenger seat unless they are 100% mathematically certain of the driver's competence.
And in their lived experience, they've learned the hard way that most people are terrible, easily distracted drivers.
This raises an important question, though. We always hear the cliche, it's lonely at the top.
But why is it actually lonely? Is it just because you're rich and famous and people want things from you?
It's much deeper and much more tragic than fame.
It is lonely because of extreme competence.
Think about it. Once you reach a certain extreme historical level of excellence,
Once you have sacrificed your entire normal life to master every microscopic nuance of your craft,
who is left in the world that can possibly give you peer-level advice?
who can you bounce ideas off of without having to explain the basics?
Almost no one alive can relate to what you've achieved, the dark sacrifices you've made to get there.
Or the insane, crushing standard you continue to hold yourself to every morning.
You are isolated by the very mastery you sought to achieve.
And because of that isolation, they are hyper-aware of the parasites that try to attach themselves to that mastery.
The book has this hilarious but absolutely brutal description of athlete entourages.
I mean, Grover takes out a flamethrower here.
It is a scathing indictment of hanger-on culture.
He describes these entourages as a swarm of unskilled, untrained, entirely inexperienced losers from the athlete's old neighborhood.
Guys who basically showed up to a victory party 5 years ago and just never left the couch.
They are swarming around looking for free drinks, bringing other losers with them.
Loudly defending the athlete's honor in public, all while having absolutely nothing to offer and not a dime in their own pockets.
A cleaner sees right through that illusion of loyalty.
They do not keep people around for sentimental reasons,
Oh.
or to feel like a big shot, or because they feel guilty about leaving their hometown behind.
Which leads us directly to how they actually view the very few people they do choose to keep in their inner circle.
They view people as tools.
Again, I have to stop and challenge this. Calling human beings tools sounds so incredibly cold and degrading.
It sounds cold if you view it through a lens of emotional attachment, but if you look at it through the lens of pure execution, it is actually deeply respectful of reality.
Grover uses the analogy of a toolbox. Think about a hammer.
A hammer is a beautiful tool. It can build a house, or it can violently destroy a wall.
A scalpel can save a patient's life if it's in the steady hands of a skilled surgeon, or it can be a deadly weapon in the hands of a criminal.
A wrench is incredibly useful, but it is never, ever going to do the job of a drill.
Right. It only does what a wrench is structurally designed to do.
Exactly. And the frustration in most businesses comes from managers yelling at a wrench for not being a drill.
Cleaners don't do that.
They view the people on their team, their trainers, their agents, their executive assistants, their specialized staff, as highly specialized tools with unique, indispensable qualities.
They don't expect their accountant to offer emotional support, and they don't expect their bodyguard to give investment advice.
They assess exactly what a person's core competency is. They test them ruthlessly, sometimes for 15 minutes, sometimes for 15 years. And once they prove their worth, the cleaner snaps them into the exact place they are needed.
It eliminates the emotional messiness of expecting people to be everything to everyone.
And once they build that specialized team, they do not mess with it.
The text points out that cleaners are meticulous, almost paranoid about placing people, but once the machine is built, they rarely shake things up just for the sake of corporate change.
If it works, they lock it down.
Because unpredictable changes yield unpredictable results.
If you look at a corporate leader who is constantly firing people, bringing in new consultants, and reorganizing their team every 6 months, the problem usually isn't the team.
The problem is a weak leader who doesn't actually know what they want to achieve, so they are just violently stirring the pot, hoping a magical solution bubbles up to the surface.
Cleaners know exactly what the end goal is. They find the precise tool that delivers the result, and they never let it go.
Okay, so let's put all these pieces together. A cleaner has their dark side engaged. They are operating in the emotionless quiet of the zone. They have meticulously selected their tools.
How does this entire apparatus actually translate to action in the real world?
Especially when a crisis hits and things go completely sideways. Because no matter how good you are, reality always pushes back.
It all comes down to a concept of absolute, uncompromising accountability.
The text draws another really sharp contrast here between how coolers and cleaners handle decision-making in a crisis.
Right, let's talk about the coolers first. The coolers make suggestions.
Picture a cooler in a tense boardroom meeting. Sales are down. The cooler will tentatively raise their hand and say, well, maybe we could try this new marketing strategy. Just a suggestion, guys. What do you think?
Why do they phrase it like that?
So they can build a safety net to avoid the blame. If they just suggest it and everyone nods and agrees to try it, and then the strategy completely fails.
The cooler can sit back in the post-mortem meeting and say, hey, don't look at me. We all decided to do it. It was a group consensus.
They abdicate their personal responsibility to the collective.
But a cleaner doesn't make suggestions. A cleaner makes decisions.
They might gather data, they might ask their highly trusted tools for specific input, but at the end of the day, they make the call, they set the direction in stone, and they completely, obsessively own the outcome.
If it succeeds, great. If it fails, they wear the failure entirely on their own shoulders.
And part of owning that outcome, both the good and the bad, means completely and utterly rejecting the concept of luck.
Cleaners do not believe in luck.
Oh man, the text is so intensely aggressive on this point. Grover writes, luck is an excuse for the unprepared.
Because it is. If you are relying on random external events aligning to make you successful, you are gambling.
You aren't competing.
When things don't go your way, calling it a bad break or bad luck is just a convenient, cowardly rationale to stay comfortable and avoid looking in the mirror to see where your preparation failed.
He even gives us what he calls the cleaner law.
I love this concept. He says that when your competitors look at your massive, sustained success and they reduce it to whining, that you just got lucky with the market timing or you got lucky with a referee's call.
That is the ultimate, indisputable proof that you're doing something right.
You have beaten them so thoroughly, you have dominated them so completely that their fragile brains literally have to invent mystical supernatural interventions to explain away your dominance because they can't handle the truth of your superiority.
But of course, we have to acknowledge that cleaners do experience real failure and massive setbacks.
They aren't magical. It is exactly how they process those setbacks that separates them.
And the text gives us a masterclass real-world example of this from Grover's own life.
We talked about his facility, Attack Athletics, in the intro. Grover built this massive 65,000 square foot state-of-the-art training center in Chicago.
It was revolutionary. It had multiple NBA courts, a 10,000 square foot weight room, medical facilities. It was his masterpiece.
But then, the 2011 NBA lockout happened.
A massive, catastrophic external disruption that he had zero control over.
Right. Suddenly, the entire league shuts down. The players aren't getting paid.
Right.
They aren't sure if there's even going to be a season, so they aren't going to fly to Chicago to train.
His main high-paying clients, guys like Kobe Bryant and Dwyane Wade, didn't want to come to the Midwest.
They wanted Grover to travel to them in LA or Miami. So Grover is flying all over the world, living out of hotels, trading his guys privately.
But meanwhile, his multi-million-dollar flagship building back in Chicago is sitting totally empty. The lights are off, the mortgage is still due.
And in that industry, gossip moves fast. People start talking. The buzz starts going around the sports world that Attack Athletics is bleeding money, that Grover overextended himself, that his grand vision is a failure.
So how does a cleaner react to that level of public crisis? A cooler would have panicked.
They would have tried to run a bunch of desperate, cheap discount promotions to fill the gym with local high school kids, or they would have gone to the press and blamed the NBA owners and the union for ruining his business.
Grover didn't whine. He didn't blame the league.
He stepped back, killed his own ego, and realized a fundamental truth about his brand and his actual value.
He realized that Attack Athletics wasn't a building made of bricks, hardwood, and steel.
Attack Athletics was him. It was his specific training philosophy, his mental framework, his unique ability to extract results from athletes.
The multi-million-dollar building was just a tool, and when the tool stopped being useful, he discarded his emotional attachment to it.
Exactly. The essence of the business was the results he delivered, and those results traveled wherever he went, whether that was a high school gym in LA or a private court in Miami.
He absorbed the financial setback, he completely ignored the industry gossip, he remapped his entire logistical course, and he kept delivering for his clients globally.
He took extreme, radical ownership of the situation.
Which brings us to the final and perhaps most sobering piece of the puzzle.
We've mapped out the psychology, the dark side, the predator instinct, the ruthless decision-making.
But what does the actual day-to-day reality of living with this insatiable drive look like? When you wake up on a Tuesday, what does it feel like to be a cleaner?
It looks like a relentless addiction to perfection.
The text calls it the exquisite rush of success.
And it really emphasizes that the manic drive to close the microscopic, almost invisible gap between near perfect and absolute perfect is the defining hallmark of the unstoppable.
We can see this vividly in the stat sheet example the text provides.
Imagine a scenario. A player hits a miraculous game-winning buzzer beater in a playoff game. The crowd of 20,000 people goes absolutely wild. The teammates are dogpiling on the court.
The fans go home thrilled. The media is writing glowing articles. It is, by all external metrics, a massive victory.
The closer in that situation is at the club popping champagne.
But the cleaner...
The cleaner walks off the court, goes deep into the quiet of the locker room, grabs the freshly printed stat sheet, and completely ignores the 30 points they scored.
They scan right past the 10 assists. Their eyes hunt for and lock onto one single line, 2 turnovers.
And they sit there in the silence and obsess over it. Damn, 2 turnovers. I read the defense wrong in the second quarter. I hesitated.
The game was an incredible, near-perfect success to everyone else in the building. But to the cleaner, it wasn't perfect enough, which means it is a failure that needs to be corrected immediately.
It truly is an addiction. Your entire life, your every waking thought is oriented around this single pursuit of perfection, to the exclusion of almost everything else.
And I appreciate that Grover is very honest about the collateral damage of this mindset.
He says straight up, your family and your friends might never understand it. They will tell you to relax. They will ask why you can't just be happy with what you've achieved.
It is not an easy, balanced way to live. You are choosing to be constantly uncomfortable. You are constantly demanding more from yourself when everyone else thinks you've already done enough.
Which requires an unbelievable amount of physical and mental endurance just to survive your own expectations.
Which is why the book eventually transitions this entirely mental philosophy into a physical reality. You have to build a body that can withstand the demands of that mind.
Right. The text briefly details the Jump Attack program. It's Grover's famous 12-week physical blueprint.
It covers explosive legs, explosive body, nutrition, injury prevention, maintenance. It's grueling.
But even when introducing a literal physical workout routine, Grover circles right back to the mental aspect.
Because the core underlying message of the physical program is this: it takes absolutely zero genetic talent to work hard. Anyone on Earth can read a book, follow a 12-week blueprint, and change their body.
If they're willing to suffer through the pain.
But they will only suffer through the pain if they have already locked in the mental toughness of the cleaner.
You can't just go to the gym and mindlessly do the reps. You have to do the reps with the active mindset that you are forging a weapon to destroy your competition.
The mental fitness absolutely precedes the physical fitness. If the mind breaks, the body stops moving.
So what does this all mean?
If we zoom out and look at the totality of everything we've pulled from Grover's Relentless today,
The journey from being a cooler who is just good, to being a closer who is great, to becoming truly, terrifyingly unstoppable.
it's a completely counterintuitive path for most of us.
It requires you to purposefully shut down your overthinking prefrontal cortex and trust your darkest, most animal instincts.
It requires you to willingly isolate yourself from negative emotional influences, even if that means trusting very few people and treating them strictly based on their utility.
It demands that you take extreme, radical ownership of your decisions. No suggestions, no committee consensus, and absolutely no blaming luck when things fail.
And finally, it means treating every single success, every championship, every corporate promotion, not as a finish line to be celebrated, but as nothing more than a temporary stepping stone to the next impossibly high goal.
And remember, this framework is not reserved for genetic freaks playing professional sports in a multi-million-dollar arena.
It is an internal operating system designed for anyone in any field who's willing to demand more of themselves than the world could ever possibly demand of them.
Exactly. It's for the custodian mastering their domain at 3 a.m. It's for the bus driver taking absolute ownership of their route. It's for you.
Which leads me to a final thought I want to leave you with.
We spent this entire deep dive talking about finding the key to unlock the cage and let your inner predator out to hunt. But I want you to take a hard, honest look at your life right now and ask yourself this. What is your cage actually made of?
Is it made of actual, immovable physical limitations?
Or is it just a phantom cage, molded around you by a lifetime of bad advice, low self-esteem, and an endless, exhausting, paralyzing worry about what other people think of you?
Because if the cage is only in your mind,
Then you already hold the key, so why are you choosing to stay locked inside? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.